Who are the top 10 prospects in fantasy heading into the second half? Find out next on Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. Welcome into FBT in 5 on Saturday, July 20th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White, and Scott's midseason top 50 prospects live on the site now. Go check it out. Just a heads up that we did not include prospects who've already made their debut, so Jackson Holiday, Junior Caminero not on this list, but let's get into it. The top 5 prospects heading into the second half: Jackson Jobe of the Tigers, Kobe Mayo of the Orioles, Dylan Cruz of the Nationals, Walker Jenkins of the Twins, and Andrew Painter of the Phillies. Also worth mentioning that these are for dynasty leagues, right? So we're thinking long-term, not just for redraft leagues.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, proximity factors into the equation somewhat, but no, we're taking into account all prospects here. If you do look at the actual article, the top 50 prospects, then you'll see where those guys who have already debuted, where they would slot in if I was counting them. But I wanted to get some new names, so yes, that's the top 5. Jackson Jobe, I was kind of surprised that a pitcher wound up at the top of the list, but stuff-wise, he just is clearly the best pitcher in the minors. Tons of velocity, rising fastball, slider with 3,000 RPM, and great control to boot. It's just we've hardly seen any innings from Jackson Jobe because of various injuries this year to his hamstring, so not an arm thing. But very exciting pitcher there. Kobe Mayo, we've talked about him a lot with the big power. Should be up soon for the Orioles. Dylan Cruz, the second overall pick last year. I think a lot of people thought he would cruise, no pun intended, to the majors. But it's been more of a struggle, and that's kind of a theme for this whole list, is the most talented prospects, all the evaluators still agree they're the most talented, haven't performed as well as we'd like. Dylan Cruz is among them. He's made it to AAA, but his numbers are just kind of meh, and so I don't think we're going to see him in the second half, but obviously he's still very high among the prospects here. Walker Jenkins, only 19, still in the lower minors, not hitting for much power yet, but amazing plate discipline and the exit velocity readings for a 19-year-old that would suggest he's growing into power. And Andrew Painter, I'm still very excited about him, even though he hasn't pitched in almost 2 years now because he's recovering from Tommy John surgery. Remember, he was poised to make the Phillies rotation as a 19-year-old, and just amazing stuff and control. And I think he still deserves to rank this high.
Let's get into prospects 6 through 10 on your list, and 2 new additions just drafted in the MLB draft. Charlie Condon, a third baseman with the Rockies. Travis Bazzana, second baseman with the Guardians, followed by Roman Anthony, an outfielder with the Red Sox. Samuel Basallo, a catcher with the Orioles, and Emmanuel Rodriguez, an outfielder with the Twins.
Yeah, so you probably heard from Chris the Welsh the other day about Condon and Bazzana, so I won't get into it too much with them. Tons of power for Condon. Bazzana, a more well-rounded player whose power plays to his pull side, but it's not as clear he's going to get to it in the majors. Like them both a lot. Roman Anthony fits what I was talking about earlier. Like the evaluators love him. Takes plenty of walks, exit velocity readings very high, and you saw during the Future Skill Showcase All-Star Weekend, which you won mostly on the strength of just hitting really long home runs. You saw that upside for Roman Anthony, but it hasn't actually translated to much production yet at AA. Numbers are passable, but not great. And that's kind of where we are with prospects. I think Roman Anthony's one of the best, and yet he still kind of fills me with a little concern. Samuel Basallo of the Orioles is he was pretty close to a perfect hitting prospect last year. Had some issues with his elbow, playing through an elbow issue early this year, and the numbers have started to come around, but they're still lagging a little behind where we're used to seeing him. And even though he's listed as a catcher as Basallo, I think in the long run he's probably a first baseman. Emmanuel Rodriguez is the one who I'm starting to feel optimistic about. Of course, he's been on the prospect radar for a while now, but always A ball or lower, and just so many extremes there in the skill set. Great power, great speed, great walk rate, really high strikeout rate, and it was a passivity issue that's still there, but now he's at Double-A and still reaching base at a 474 clip, still performing well. The strikeout rate's actually come down a little bit. And so he's actually facing some good pitchers now in Double-A, and it's going well. I still imagine his willingness to take strikes is going to lead to less walks in the majors and even more strikeouts and maybe some issues with batting average. But there's enough power speed there, hopefully enough walks, that Emmanuel Rodriguez will still be a difference maker in fantasy. So now he's in my top 10.
All right, again, that's Scott's top 10. You can find the rest of the top 50 list on the site, so make sure to check it out. For more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the Odyssey app, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today in 5, and we will be back again next week. Bye-bye.